Hey there, welcome to episode 209 of Fresh Air at 5. Well, it's spring break week and I haven't been up in the morning much and it's been really wet. So I have still listened to some podcasts and have reflected on some podcasts. I started off the week on Tuesday with listening to a discussion on Evolving with Gratitude about super communicators and how can we be active listeners and do a better job. Going through the week, I listened to some other podcasts that were really good. Take a listen for yourself. And wrapping up the week, we got Say What from Teach Happier as she talks about being an engaged, supportive listener as we have conversations with people in the changing landscape of education. So this week's episode is entitled, Let's Talk, Really. So without further ado, one more thing. Friend of mine, Jeremy Jorgensen, has joined the Educational Podcast Network, and you are about to hear his voice as he shares about his podcast, and then we'll get into my episode. Thanks. Here goes episode 209, Fresh Air at 5.
This is Jeremy Jorgensen, host of the Edify podcast, proud member of the Education Podcast Network. Each show on the network is independently owned, and the views expressed may not represent those of other podcasts. For the best education podcasts, visit edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter, coming to you every week from Abbotsford, which is about 45 minutes east of Vancouver, British Columbia, on the west coast of Canada. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to get some fresh air by walking about my neighborhood, which is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Stolo people, the Simath First Nation and Mathwee First Nation. I consume podcast content while I walk, then reflect on this content in an unedited video, which I post on my X, formerly known as Twitter, channel every day. This podcast is the collection of the audio taken from those daily selfie videos over the course of a week, Monday to Friday. So let's jump into my listening and learning this past week. Hey, PLN, it's March 18, 2025. Yesterday was St. Patrick's Day. I learned about St. Patrick and that he wasn't actually Irish, but he was English, and how his whole thing went about getting thrown into slavery in Ireland and escaping and then going back as a missionary to talk to people about God in Ireland. And I don't think he did a lot of drinking based on what I read, but maybe, who knows? Anyhow, this today I listened to Evolving with Gratitude with Lainey Rowell as she Charles Duhigg on being a super communicator, and he has a book called Super Communicators. He talks a lot about various types of communication, and unless you are a complete absolute rock star at communicating with people and getting to know who they are and what they are about, you should listen to this episode for starts, because he's got some great things to say. I think I'm pretty smart about communication, but I learned a lot of things. So maybe that says I'm not very smart about communication. Anyhow, they talk about looping as a technique. They talk about all kinds of other things as far as being a motivational interview, talking about how they have, there's different things called emotional communication, social communication, and practical communication, where we look for different things in the way we talk to each other. And matching is about being on the same type of communication as the person you're talking to. Otherwise, it feels like you're missing something. All right. You should go listen to this episode. I didn't catch the episode number, but it is Charles Duhigg on being a super communicator, and you will learn something, and I think enjoy it. Thanks, Lainey. Have a fabulous day. Thank you, Charles, for your words. All right, the last thing for March 18, 2025. I just ran into my friend Bruce that I run into in the mornings as we're walking around the neighborhood. Him and his dog I run into in the mornings. And it's pretty special that I have somebody that I can connect with at that time of day infrequently. We don't see each other all the time, but you know, there's enough there that I call Bruce my friend, and Sophie, his dog, my friend. You know, I'm not crazy big fan of dogs. My friend Ryan and Joe, they have a dog. She's very cute and sweet, but overall, you know what? Not a super huge fan of dogs, but Sophie the dog is pretty special to me. I call her name as they're walking towards me in the morning. She wags her tail and all this. And, well, I saw Sophie last week for the last time because she passed away this weekend. Or actually last night. And, you know, it's, wow, you know, it's a nice puppy, and how, you know, she is going to be missed. My friend Bruce isn't going to have his walking partner anymore. And, you know, I just hope that he carries on. So just thinking about Sophie right now, I thought I'd share, because you've met Sophie in the past. There's an episode about Who's Your Bruce? And that's when I shared my friend Bruce and Sophie with you back, I think episode 83 or something a while ago. All right, we'll talk to you. Hey, PLN, it's March 19, 2025. Out for fresh air at 5 mid-afternoon. I think I've settled into my spring break routine by not going out in the morning, and I'm actually relaxing. I had a nap midday, which, you know, was good. Good to have a nap. All right, this afternoon as I'm walking, I listened to episode 73 of SEL in Education with Dr. Krista Lay, as she brings us an interview with Dr. Samuel Mormando out of the Gardner Valley, I think, school district, as he talks about balancing innovation, educational innovation, and digital well-being, and what that got to do with each other. If you are in leadership in your district, I strongly recommend you listen to this episode, because there's a lot in here about what student voice has to say, about educator literacy as far as technology, and what does that have to do with anything. And then, you know, the things that we, you know, as educators and leaders in our district do to push things forward. It's important that we do push things forward, but how do we do that? Who do we consider? And what is our end goal? AI is a big part of all the things of technology these days. Digital citizenship is the underlying framework, I think, that's necessary for students to be able to navigate this brave new world that we're in. Thank you, Dr. Krista Lay and Dr. Samuel Mormando, for your thoughts. As I said, take a listen to this episode 73 of SEL in Education, as part of the educational podcast network that Fresh Air of 5 is a part of. Thanks. Hey, PLN, it's December 20, 2025, out for fresh air at 5. Midday, it's beautiful, sunny out. We're supposed to be in the midst of pouring rain. They got the forecast wrong, and I'm just hoping it's wrong the rest of spring break, because it was forecasted to be wet, wet, wet. All right, this afternoon I listened to episode 259 of the House of EdTech with the man himself, Chris Nesi, as he brings us an episode called Level Up Your Learning, Gamification in Education. And so, Chris, thanks to you for breaking it down, talking about the important parts of intrinsic motivation and dopamine and success, and what makes us go without having, you know, all the other things that the pressures of life on us. Why do we like to learn? Why do we play video games? And how can we apply these principles to our classroom? You know, I use Kahoot and Blooket at times in my classroom, not super successfully, other than they want to play some games. I do it to quiz on concepts and things like that, but overall, I'm not a big gamifier in my space. I do present inquiry challenges has problems where they are investigators in a thing. But yes, so I got work I can do on this. Thanks for sharing. Appreciate it. And you know what? I'm glad to be an awesome supporter of the House of Ed Tech. Thanks for what you do. And keep on doing it, Chris. Okay, take a listen, people. Episode 259, House of Ed Tech. Hey, PLN, happy Friday and happy the second day of spring. Outside, it doesn't feel like spring. It feels like gray and wet, and that's why I'm inside. This morning, I went to a recreational professional development opportunity to the BC Outdoors sport fishing show, and it was really cool to go and see the different people talking about sport fishing and fly fishing, and I sat in a session where I learned about fly tying better than I already know how to do. So it's pretty fantastic. All right, this evening, as I'm listening to the Easy Ed Tech podcast bonus episode that came out today called Managing Screen Time Distractions. It's called Screen Time Distractions, How to Manage Student Distractions. No, something like that. Can't exactly remember, but it's a bonus episode that came out today, sponsored by Deladeo, as Monica Burns talks with the one of the lead guys from Deladeo about their software about managing distractions on digital devices. The whole idea that I heard here is that managing devices and distractions on devices is like good classroom management. We have to apply the same principles and ideas to this problem as we do to the physical classroom space and training up students how to use these devices in positive and productive ways, even though there's more distractions that are in hand in a classroom now that we have digital devices. All right, take a listen for yourself. Appreciate it. And you could even get Deladeo in your space. But that is not necessarily actually educating, but it probably is, because Deladeo sounds like it's different than just blocking and having a caged browser situation. All right, listen for yourself. Thanks so much. Bye, Monica. Happy Friday. All right, the last thing for Friday, March 21, 2025. A year ago was in Palm Springs for Spring Q, and am missing being there now. I had a really good time, good interaction with lots of people that are there, and wish that I could be there. But I'm not. I was at NCC recently, had a fantastic experience there, so we can't be everywhere. All right, as we're going along here, I listened to probably Season 5, Episode 27 with Suzanne Daly, as she brings us Teach Happier, an episode entitled Say What. And as we have our political spaces around us shifting and changing, even here in Canada, we have got some challenges about how do we as educators respond. Do we respond to what people have to say with a shift response or with a support response? Remember a while ago, Suzanne talked about this. I can't remember the episode number, but fantastic. And it talked about, how do I quickly change the conversation to that someone is talking to me about back to me, as opposed to focusing on them. In this episode, she talks about a shift in language and how we can respond in these ways when we hear things and want to go deeper with people. It is the three statements of go on, what else, and tell me more, and what else. And so this has to do with us being active listeners, about being engaged in the conversation and supporting as opposed to shifting the response back to me. Doesn't mean that we don't talk about how we're feeling, but in a place of uncertainty and when the ground is shaking, Suzanne talks about something that she heard from somebody else, and I can't remember, so go listen for yourself, about being a support in a time of shaking ground. All right, thank you, Suzanne. So very good. Ties in with the other episode that I listened to at the top of this podcast, and so go take a listen for yourself about being involved in conversations. Thanks. Bye. I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's like a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find some other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific episode podcast titles and episode numbers in the show notes, which are only a click or swipe away for your learning convenience. I've also started to put together a Spotify playlist of each of the episodes so that you can also take a listen to those specifically, and the link to that playlist is in the show notes. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoyed this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. You can also follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Brian Carr, BRYONCAR, or at Fresh Air at 5. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can be found on the Educational Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. I hope you have a fantastic day. Get some fresh air before the day is out and take care of yourself because you are worth it.